What makes a game great? Is it amazing graphics, intuitive controls, a meticulously crafted plot? Well, yes, all of that and none of it. A game is great if it's great at what it sets out to do. Which brings me to Gothic. This game has dated graphics, awful controls, a terrible inventory system, and when it first came out, it was basically a bunch of bugs and glitches held together by sheer willpower. But it's still one of my favorite games of all time, because it's good at what it does. And what it does can be summed up in one word: immersion. I have never played a game that was as immersive as this one and its first sequel. A lot of that has to do with the world itself. It feels so real and believable, and most of all, it feels lived in. It's like you've just been dropped into a place that has been around for a very long time and that has been getting along just fine without you. In many games, there is this sense that everyone was just waiting for a hero to finally solve all their problems. Gothic is different. It feels like the world just doesn't care that you have arrived. The animals and monsters hunt and kill each other in the wild. The NPCs have a daily routine, and when you do find treasure, the chests are either already empty or all you find is like an old cup or a rusty pickaxe or one arrow. Okay, we won't get much further unless I explain the premise. There's this guy. He's a king. He's not really important right now. What is important is this war he's fighting against the orcs. I know, very creative. But wait, it gets better, I promise. You see, the war isn't going that great. The only thing keeping the humans from losing is this really awesome magical ore. To keep mining the ore, the king needs manpower. So he sends every criminal to the mines, no matter what they did. To make sure the criminals don't escape, a bunch of mages create a magical barrier. But something goes wrong, and the barrier just keeps growing until it's as big as the whole valley, trapping everyone in there. The criminals use the confusion to kill the guards and take over, and in time, a society develops inside the barrier with 3 distinct camps, because, and this is the key point, you can get in, but you can't get out. The camps are each motivated by completely different goals. The people in the old camp have basically resigned themselves to staying inside the barrier. They trade ore with the king, and some of them live like kings themselves. The new camp is like the opposite of that. They don't want to live by the rules. They have a plan to collect as much magical ore as possible and just blow the whole thing up. And then there's the Brotherhood. They smoke weed and pray to a god called the Sleeper who's gonna free them all. Our story begins when we are thrown into the colony, which basically makes this a fish out of water premise, which is convenient story-wise. Since we just arrived here from the outside, it's perfectly acceptable for everyone to just constantly explain everything to us. Or it would be if people were actually nice enough to help us out, which they often aren't, because, and this is another key point, people don't care about you. They are at best dismissive and at worst outright hostile. The moment you enter this colony, some guy just punches you in the fucking face, because, well, that's how it's done around here. These are criminals, and you are new. The most sympathetic person you meet basically tells you, join our camp if you want, try and find a weapon and stay on the roads, and then he just takes off. Nobody does anything for you unless they get something out of it. You actually have to convince NPCs to let you do quests for them. And oftentimes those quests are either tedious, dangerous, or in a few cases, even just straight up scams where you are lured away under false pretenses only to be beaten and robbed. You are nobody. You have to make a name for yourself. Until then, you do menial quests, you pay protection money. No, I'm not kidding about that. And you keep your head down. I also like how real the world looks, even though the graphics aren't great, and by the way weren't when this game came out more than 20 years ago. It looks real somehow, like somebody really took their time in figuring out how a forest looks or how the terrain forms around a riverbed. And especially in the first game, when it comes to the camps and the mines, everything has a gritty, used look about it because, well, these places are neither new nor particularly well cared for. This game also has one of the most atmospheric soundtracks I've ever heard. It's all about ambience and sounds. For the most part, the music almost blends in with the environment. It's like you took the sounds of a forest or a cave and made them into music, like it's woven into the dense canvas of this game's atmosphere. Add to that great sound design, a realistic day-night cycle, changing weather, and almost no loading screens, and you start to see why this world just sucks you in right away. Even the way you progress is immersive. There's no character creation screen, no level up menu, and no skill tree. Almost everything happens in-game. You learn skills, earn attributes, and join guilds, all by talking to NPCs. Instead of clicking on a plus sign next to a glorified spreadsheet, you have to talk to people, and when you do learn a skill, for instance, you often get a little explanation on how that skill would work in the real world. Like, this is how you hold a sword correctly, or this is how you pick a lock. These aren't detailed tutorials, of course, but again, they add immersion. Other mechanics are also explained in-game. Near the beginning of the game, we meet these two guys called Radford and Drax, and in exchange for a beer, they give you some useful clues about how to fight, how to deal with groups of enemies, and what skills are useful to learn early. They do this in a completely organic way, and the game trusts the player to get it without pop-up messages or the awful immersion breaking of NPCs saying things like, "Press the action button to use your weapon." By the way, I love how getting the beer for Drax is the first side quest we get. If we explored a little bit beforehand, we already found a few bottles, and our reward are a few helpful tips about combat. Now, while the lack of context menus is commendable, it can get a bit tiring. For instance, it's pretty cool that you can just use a frying pan without an immersion-breaking pop-up, but having to cook 28 pieces of meat one by one gets old fast. Another immersive but sometimes annoying part, it's cool and interesting that killing people is an actual act. After you beat somebody in a fight, they are basically just knocked out on the ground. If you really want to kill someone, you have to actively make that choice. But if you're fighting large groups of humans, like bandits or enemy guards, you have to perform this maneuver over and over again whilst still fighting. Otherwise, the enemies will just keep getting back up with 1 HP and start fighting you all over again. Having said all that, these are minor quibbles and certainly not game-breaking. Another thing that I really love about these games is the difficulty. This isn't Skyrim. You don't kill a dragon 15 minutes into the game. In fact, you're having trouble with an overgrown chicken, and forget about trying to fight a wolf before you get some experience. It will kill you. But this is what makes it fun, because when you do gain experience and you do learn new skills and you finally manage to kill that wolf or loot that chest or win in a fight against a guy who has been bullying you, it feels great. There's also a great sense of freedom in these games, even though the first game has a pretty small world. For instance, Skyrim's map is roughly 10 times the size, yet to me, the Mine Valley in Gothic still feels pretty big because it's all handcrafted and rich with detail. In short, they went for quality over quantity. For instance, Gothic 2 has one single city. That's it, and it isn't even that big, but it's dense with activity, NPCs, and quests. There's almost nothing generic about it, and even the characters that don't have names and unique dialogue still have many dialogue options and give you clues or background info about the world. The same goes for the camps in the first game. These worlds are so great because there's something interesting behind every corner, and you are free to explore all of it from the moment you start the game. Well, theoretically anyway. There are almost no invisible plot walls or anything. Instead, the boundaries are set by difficulty. A lot of the animals and monsters are just too tough for you, and just straight up trying to run past them is almost impossible. This way you gain access to most of the world simply by gaining experience. I like this way of softly letting the player know where to go, but I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. These natural difficulty barriers are also explained immersively. One of the first NPCs you meet tells you to stay away from the forest, and later you get similar hints about strong enemies in dangerous areas like the swamp sharks, the mine crawlers, or, of course, the orcs. By the way, I love how the orcs are handled in general. We get a few warnings about the orc territory, and if we go there, we are killed very quickly. But we get our first real glimpse of an orc at the very bottom of the old mine, where a captured and enslaved orc is pushing a giant piece of machinery on his own. Even if we didn't get obliterated by an orc before, we can get a sense of how strong these creatures are just from environmental storytelling alone. Speaking of which, maybe my favorite bit of environmental storytelling is Kyle's hut. Just listen to this.
How often have I told you bastards not to run through my hut?
What's your problem?
Leave me alone, man. Everyone's a problem with me. It all started when I built my hut. Don't build your hut close to the ditch, they said. But none of these bastards told me what would happen if I still did it. When I came back from the mine a few days ago, I had a second door. Those pigs, I hate them. I can't tell you how much I hate them. Now everybody runs through my hut. Every idiot.
This is not only hilarious, it also reinforces another point. The world never feels empty or fake because there are characters with little stories and opinions everywhere. As I mentioned before, even random NPCs with no names have interesting things to say. And they can even get special dialogue options depending on where you are. Like guards in the mine say different things from guards in the camp, and so on. There is another kind of freedom where Gothic excels. The freedom to choose how you approach and solve problems. Here's a small example. Early on, you are given a quest where you need to find a certain place. Because you are new, the NPC tells you to get a map. Well, you can go to the map maker and buy one. You can intimidate him into giving it to you. You can beat him up and take it, or you can just go without a map. In many games, getting the map would be necessary to even be able to leave and complete the quest. Here, the game just says, fine, go without one if you want. See how far you get. The same goes for many choices, big or small, within the game. A big part of the atmosphere is the dialogue too, and this is one of the reasons why I think this game failed to catch on in English-speaking regions. You see, in German, this game has impeccable voice acting and really good writing. Even if you can't understand German, just listen to the difference in recording quality.
What are you doing here?
Making sure no one gets near the exchange place. Especially one of those cutthroats from the new camp.
Was machst du hier?
Dafür sorgen, dass keiner an die Austauschstelle rankommt. Vor allem nicht die Halsabschneider aus dem neuen Lager.
In fairness, it's pretty tough to accurately translate the dialogue. Not the meaning exactly, but the tone of it. These games were made in a specific region of Germany where the tone is rough, honest, direct, and also quite funny, so I don't envy the translators. By the way, I think these games are beautiful too. The creators used the tools they had to full effect. If you're on board with this style of graphics, you're in for a gorgeous experience, especially when it comes to the second game. Now, I mentioned most of the flaws in the beginning. I think by far the biggest obstacle to overcome are the controls. You really have to get used to them. The biggest problem outside of the controls is probably that the game really peaks in the first act. After you join a guild, there are fewer and fewer side quests, and the game becomes much more linear. NPCs also don't always properly react to big things that happen in the world, which is definitely a bit immersion breaking towards the end. While the premise really is lightning in a bottle and manages to hold the plot together for a long time, the game does become a bit of a slog towards the very end. And the final dungeon is like a clunky, poorly lit, uncreative version of a Zelda temple. It also doesn't really fit the regular gameplay style at all. There are a few other things too, I'm just gonna mention them really quickly. There is a bunch of unfinished things in the game, like these bandits next to the new camp who attack you on sight but aren't part of any questline, or the old coins that you find everywhere. There's like 10,000 of them, but they have no value and just clutter up your inventory. Each camp has a beginner class, a fighter class, and a mage class, except for the Brotherhood. You can't become a guru, which is their version of a mage class, which sucks because it could have been such an easy fix. The ropes and spells are already in the game, and I can't imagine that you would have to add more than 1 or 2 extra dialogue options. This is a missed opportunity. Probably something a lot of people notice when they first start the game is the glacial jogging pace and the lack of a sprint button. You can get speed potions later, but they just make you run normally and last 1 minute. I mean, I guess they just never got around to implementing a stamina gauge, but I mean, seriously, just how out of shape can this guy be? It's annoying that corpses stay active, so to speak, after you loot them. This makes it way harder to loot groups of dead enemies because you keep trying to loot the ones you already looted. Why not just make them inactive or at least make it clear that they're empty? This isn't unique to Gothic, but still worth mentioning. Escort quests are a pain in the ass. NPCs get stuck, they take the wrong path, and you have to backtrack all the time. This border between the temple and the sea looks horrible and unfinished. Just put a mountain there or something. This is especially annoying because apart from that, the whole temple area looks great, and this kind of ruins it a bit. And last but not least, why is there nothing behind this waterfall? I know that realistically, there really aren't that many caves behind waterfalls, but still, you know, I'm disappointed. Alright, that's enough ranting. I really do love this game, and I don't want to end this review on a bunch of petty complaints, because if you can get past some of these more obvious obstacles, like the controls, like the graphics, you're in for a wonderful experience. And even if you can't, there is still hope for you, because there is a remake coming out today, and we'll see what that brings. But the neat thing is that whether it's great, mediocre, or unplayable, we'll always have the original. In any case, while the original game did not catch on in the Americas or Asia, they were successful enough in Germany, Eastern Europe, and a few other places. People wanted more. People wanted Gothic 3, and that's the tragedy of this whole thing, because Gothic 3 should have been a masterpiece. Instead, we got something very different. This is what they call a teaser, because I will be talking about Gothic 3 in a future video. What happened with that game, what went wrong, and why, in spite of everything, it's still worth playing. What do you think about Gothic? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.